He who is able to resist the rush of desire and anger, even here, before he gives up his body, Arjun, he is a yogin, he is the happy man. So the fourth quality needed to attain samadarshi, equal vision, is tade vargevinara, meaning resisting and becoming liberated from desire and anger. And Shri Krishna explains this in this verse. A very great state is described. One to be attained, look, before one gives up their body. One must learn to resist the rush of desire and anger and win over them. Only such a person can be a happy person and not anybody else. How can we resist the rush of desire and anger, as well as other bad qualities such as greed, envy, pride and delusion? Guruji once received the question, respected Shri Bhai, one does not get rid of one's prejudice against misdoers who are his near and dear ones arising from their indecent and outrageous behavior. How does one forget so as to normalize their relationship with such a person? Please enlighten. Shri Krishna answers this in this verse, and we must understand this verse properly. Man is a social animal where he cannot live without other people, yet arguments arise when he lives with his family and lives with society, and these arguments sometimes lead to prejudices. How can one become free from these prejudices? Shri Krishna explains this beautifully in this verse. First of all, if you look here, Shri Krishna uses the word ihe in the second word in the first line, meaning in this world. We can only be free from these things in this world and not anywhere else. The three worlds are called Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha. You know the Gayatri mantra, Om Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha. Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha. Bhur means the earth, Bhuva means space, and Swaha means heaven. If one does good deeds and goes to heaven to enjoy their consequences, then one still won't be liberated from desire and anger in heaven. The gods in heaven have desires and anger. Many Puranas, scriptures show that Indra, who the king of gods, has greed from his kingdom in heaven, and that's why there's many stories of a rishi performing penances or a king performing a yagna, and Indra comes running to create obstacles to those penances or yagnas so they stop. Indra also has greed and cannot become liberated from it, whereas humans can become free from these. Iha means on this earth, but it can also mean in this human body. It means being born in a human body, because we may have been born on this earth, but if we have been born in a body other than a human being, then it's not possible to be liberated from desires and anger. This is because all creatures apart from humans do not even know that they have desires or that they are getting angry. They are living instinctively. They do not even know what desire is. They don't even know what anger is. Even if they did know, they don't even know their bad qualities and that they need to be liberated from them. As soon as a dog in one area goes into a territory of a dog from another area, then the dog on the home territory will start barking at him. They get angry, and that is why they bark and fight against each other. This has been going on for years. Have dogs changed? No, they haven't. People have changed. In ancient times, it was such that certain territories belonged to some groups and other territories belonged to other groups. And if a person from one group went into tribal people from those other groups, then the latter would kill them. This is what people used to do, and man had this animal instinct. But dogs are still doing this until 2012, whereas people have changed and allowed people to come into their territories by giving them a permission and a visa. People get a visa, go to another country to travel, and then go back to their home countries. When people go to other territories, then people in those home territories will not kill them. They've created a proper system for people to visit their countries, after which they go back. Have dogs started the system of visa? No, they haven't. This means that dogs are not in the same position in which they were in, the dogs are in the same position in which they were in thousands of years ago. They've stayed the same in terms of attitude, whereas humans have changed. This is because humans have found out that it is wrong for them to fight with each other. They've learnt that anger is bad and that it leads to losses. One who understands this is a human being. One great soul wrote that one who feels that one should be free from desire and anger, as Shri Krishna said in this verse, is a human being, and everyone else is a creature, as earlier explained by Shri Krishna. These people are creatures that just get born. A person who thinks about the bad qualities of desire and anger that he has, and tries to remove these bad qualities from his acharan, conduct, becomes purified. There is no purification without good acharan. One must learn to resist the rush of desire and anger. The word acharan reminds me of a nice story from the Ramayana. Ram and Sita were once sitting in the forest, and Lakshmanji had gone to get some rice and flowers. Saints give a very nice example. There was a conversation going on between Ram and Sita, and a topic came up of whose feet was nicer. Ramji said that my feet are very nice. Sitaji said, no, my feet are very beautiful. Neither of them were prepared to give up on their statements. This conversation went on for very long. A husband and wife always have this debate of who's better looking. The husband said that he's more handsome, and the wife says that she's better looking. This conversation went on for a while. Both are for each other, and yet they still have this debate. Both realized that neither of them was prepared to give up on the debate, so they should wait for Lakshman to come, because there was no other person there. The three of them went alone to the jungle, and therefore both Ram and Sita agreed to accept what Lakshman said. Lakshmanji came back, and both of them were sitting underneath a tree, and Ramji asked Lakshmanji, out of my feet and Sita's feet, which of the two appears more beautiful to you? Lakshmanji was in great difficulty, and asked Sri Ram to let him do another task, because he didn't want to get into a debate between a husband and wife. One should never get involved in a debate between a husband and wife. One who does this isn't intelligent, because you never know when they'll make up and you're standing on one side or the other. Lakshmanji asked Sri Ram not to get him involved in this. Ramji said, no Lakshman, you have to say, because this debate keeps increasing in frequency. What could Lakshman do? He had the same amount of respect for both Ramji and Sitaji. Lakshman was very intelligent. He thought a little and first pointed his finger at Sri Ram's feet, saying, Acharanti, meaning from these feet. Then he pointed his finger towards Sitaji's feet, saying, Acharan sundar lageche, means these feet look beautiful. Acharanti acharan sundar lageche. The way Lakshman said it could literally imply that Sita's feet were more beautiful. Therefore Sitaji got happy and told Ramji, look what he's saying, my feet look much nicer than your feet. That's what Lakshman said. Sri Ram said, Sita, you do not understand Lakshman. He's my brother, and I've been with him since childhood, and I understand what he's saying. He said something, so I don't get offended, and also that you don't get offended. The literal meaning, Acharanti acharan sundar lageche, is comparative, but what Lakshman is trying to say is that because my feet are there, your feet look beautiful. This is because if Sri Ram's feet were not there, who would worship Sitaji's feet? Therefore, it's because of Sri Ram's feet that Sitaji's feet look beautiful. Both were happy and had smiles on their faces. Lakshman then said, both of you gave your interpretations of what I said, but in my mind there was a third meaning. What I'm trying to say is that one's feet look beautiful because of their acharan, their conduct. If one has acharan, conduct, and not just talk in his life, then he has good acharan, conduct, and people will worship his feet. It applies to you, me, and all of us, that whatever good things we listen to, whatever good things we read, or whatever good things we say, if they're applied into our acharan, our conduct, then the feet look beautiful, and people by themselves will go and worship that person's feet. What I'm trying to say is that one who resists the rush of desire and anger in this world and becomes free from them before he leaves his body, then he is a happy man. And by saying Iha, Shri Krishna is warning us that this human body is a unique opportunity and a golden opportunity to become free from desire and anger. Therefore, one should not waste this opportunity. A human body is a means by which one can attain liberation. It is the right, correct and able medium to win over desire and anger. That is why Shri Krishna has used the word Iha, meaning in this body and in this world. One must therefore win over desire and anger before they leave their body. There is no guarantee of when one will leave the body, and therefore we must make these efforts immediately, here and now. This is because there is nothing as unpredictable and fragile as the body. It is very unpredictable. Nobody knows when the glass of water can break. The glass does not need age nor disease to break. We saw earlier in the previous class that Buddha said that the reason for death is not disease but birth, because after birth you're always open to death. It can come at any time. There is no guarantee of it. That is why a human being must be aware at all times that he doesn't want to get lost in desire and anger, but he wants to become lost in God. He is not a slave to desire and anger, he wants to be a servant of God. Before desire and anger make one dance, one must resist them and become a servant of God. This is something that a human being can do himself in the human body and not in any other type of body. There is a second reason why Shri Krishna says before he gives up his body. This is because if one hasn't become free from desire and anger before they've left the body, then these will arise when he enters his next body, in another body. When we leave the body, then we only leave the physical body, but when the soul, mind, intellect, conscious and ego in the subtle body leave from the physical body, then desire and anger go with them. And when desire and anger go with the subtle body, then they'll harass the person also in the next life and cause destruction in the next life. One should be free from the poisonous feelings of desire and anger before they leave the physical body. Guruji often says during the Srimad Bhagavad discourses, while remembering Pujya Dumli Maharaj, that Pujya Dumli Maharaj always said that before one leaves the human body, his vasana, desires and their anger should leave the body. If there's only one message of the Srimad Bhagavat, then it will be this. Before one is released from the physical body, and therefore before one dies, Shri Krishna says the same thing, that they should be free from desire and anger. A farmer once told Guruji a very nice thing. He says that the trees from which lemons come out are very bitter. Lemons themselves are bitter, but lemon trees are very, very bitter. Look at the greatness of God, that when a lemon falls off a tree, then it leaves the bitterness behind. While it stays on the tree, it's very bitter. You see this, if you break it off the tree, but when it falls off the tree by itself, then it leaves the bitterness behind. I thought that if lemons could leave the bitterness behind when they fall off the lemon tree, then can a person not leave his anger and desires behind when he leaves the physical body? One must be free from these, but one cannot let them go. That is why punara pijanam punara pimaram punara pijani yatresha, meaning these things keep running and one keeps falling into this confusion. That's why Shri Krishna says that one should resist the rush of desire and anger even here before his body goes. What is desire? It is something that someone thinks about all the time. If someone keeps thinking about a person, object or thought all the time and cannot get lost from it, whether it's because of attraction or repulsion, then this is desire. There was a very famous psychiatrist by the name of Frank Wu. Anyone heard of him? Frank Wu. Somebody went to him and Frank Wu asked him what was wrong. The person said he gets angry all the time to the extent that he goes mad. I would like to add to this that only mad people get angry. The person said that he would get absolutely mad whenever he got angry and that he would like to become free from this anger. He asked Frank Wu what he should do and asked him to find him a solution. Anger is a shadow of desire. Whenever there are desires, then anger will come with them. Desires cannot be seen and just run in a person's mind, whereas anger becomes manifest. The majority of people see that the person is anger, but if anger manifests, then there must be a seed of desire inside there somewhere else, otherwise the anger will not become manifest. The patient only said that he got angry all the time and that he went mad when he got angry, and asked Frank Wu to give him the solution to this. Frank Wu resolved that he'll only find out what's on the patient's mind that made him angry. He told him to say out loud the thought that comes to his mind when Frank Wu performs specific actions. Psychiatrists have different ways of doing things to find out what is going in our minds. Frank Wu picked up a handkerchief lying on a table near him and threw it to the floor. He then asked the patient to tell him what came to his mind when the handkerchief fell on the floor. The patient said a lot of desires arose in his mind. Frank Wu asked him if a lot of desires can really arise in his mind when he dropped the handkerchief. The patient said, yes, a lot of desires arose in my mind. There was also a book lying on the table. Frank Wu picked up the book and used his hand to flip through the pages so that it made a noise, and asked the patient what he thought after seeing Frank Wu open the book and flip the pages so it made a noise. The patient said that a lot of desires arose in his mind and he had a lot of thoughts of desires. Frank Wu asked him if he really had desires. When Frank Wu put a handkerchief on the floor, the patient said yes, and then Frank Wu asked him if he really had desires. When Frank Wu opened the book and flipped through the pages making a noise, and the patient again said yes. There was also a bell lying nearby on the table. Frank Wu picked up the bell and started ringing it and asked the patient what thought came to his mind. The patient said again that desires arose in his mind. Frank Wu found this strange, and he thought he's never had a patient like this. He performed 3 completely different actions of dropping a handkerchief, flicking through the pages of the book, and ringing a bell, yet this patient kept having the same thoughts. The patient said authoritatively that in his mind that he was having the thought of desires. No matter what Frank Wu would do, the patient would have only one thing on his mind, and therefore what Frank Wu was doing was not important because these thoughts were on his mind 24 hours a day. Frank Wu told the patient that this was the very reason the patient was getting angry all the time. This was one of the cases near the beginning of Frank Wu's career. He carried out research in this field and came to the conclusion that 95% of people like this, they only have one type of thoughts in their minds no matter what is happening on the outside. This is the name of desire. A person should study themselves and they'll realize this. Hiranyakashipu, the demon, was like this. Hiranyakashipu, his name, Hiranyakashipu, means one who sleeps with gold under his pillow. We gave so many names to Hiranyakashipu, but his real name was Hiranyakashipu, meaning one who sleeps with gold under his pillow. Meaning that while awake, sleeping, or 24 hours a day, he'd only think about gold, diamonds, and pearls. He'd think about money all the time. That is why he got angry all the time. If people are angry, then just know that they have one type of thought in their minds, and that's desire. That is why they have anger, otherwise anger would not come. The desire will be there to create that anger. It is not important what's happening on the outside, because what's on their mind is the same. All of us would have had the same experience. A husband has gone out of his town, and the wife's waiting for him. 10 days have gone, and 15 days have gone, yet the husband still doesn't come. He has not telephoned, nor has he written a letter. The wife keeps thinking that he will come back soon. At that time, whatever the wife sees or does, she only sees her husband in it. In the morning when she opens the door and sees, if it's India, a cow, she thinks, it's a blessing I've seen a cow so early in the morning, because that means my husband will come. A crow starts making a noise of caw, 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 which will scare people away, but the wife thinks that because the crow has spoken, her husband will come back today. If a glass plate falls from her hands while she's working and breaks, she considers it good luck that her husband will come back. If anything happens, being the telephone ringing or doorbell ringing, she will think that her husband has come. Even if a little noise has been made or a car comes outside, then she thinks that her husband has come. All these things happen every day, but because she has the one thought in her head, and she connects her husband's arrival to all these things. This is the very name of desire. The scriptures say that the action is not important, the desire in the mind of the person is important. And when this desire comes, then anger will also come. Then what is the solution to resisting the rush of desire and anger? Let's give you a few solutions. The first solution is to prevent them arising in the first place, because when they arise, then it's very difficult to stop them. Do not let them become born. Shri Krishna says in this verse that one who resists the rush of desire and anger, even here in this body, is a yogi and a happy man. This means that a person who cannot resist the rush of desire and anger and cannot keep them under control is sad. What sorrows come to him? Desires and angers lead to excitement for him. This excitement leads to turbulence. It creates friction because he has my desires and they're not other people's desires. When both these desires conflict, then there's a friction, and you have to decide which of these desires is most important. Therefore, because of excitement, turbulence and friction makes the person becomes sad. One has to become free from desires and anger. If a person wants to make an effort to become free from these, then an awareness is necessary for this. We do because we should become our own security guard. 4 steps are needed to become free from desire and anger. The first step is to reduce the frequency of the amount of times you have desire and anger. A person might first become angry every 5 hours, then he might become angry every day, then he might become angry every week. The frequency should keep reducing. Therefore, the first step with someone trying with alertness to become free from anger is that the frequency of times that desire and anger come to him should keep reducing, and desire and anger do not come as quickly as they used to come before. The second step is that on the few occasions that desire and anger come, they should not come with the same level of excitement as with before. The intensity that used to come with desire and anger before has reduced. First, the frequency is reduced, then the intensity is reduced. Before, when a person got angry, then people in the next 3 buildings could hear, but now only the neighbor can hear. The intensity should reduce. Third, desire and anger do not last as long as they used to last. The duration is reduced. Because when the person got angry, then it would be like that for a week, and the wife knew that this behavior would go on for a week. But then it kept reducing over time. Maybe it comes once or twice like a shower that can be turned off and controlled easily so that everything goes back to normal. Therefore, the duration is reduced. The frequency is reduced, the intensity is reduced, and the duration is reduced. Fourthly, after one gets desire of anger, then the feeling of regret that he has afterwards increases. This is a very important step. The sense of repentance should increase. Before, the person had a sense of repentance after having desire and anger for half an hour, but now, even if he has desire and anger for a few seconds, then the bigger the sense of repentance. He just says one thing in anger and thinks about why he said that. Before he would get angry for a long time and would not think about it after, because he thought that the other person was wrong, and that it was the other person's fault, and he was only doing this because the other person was doing them. Now, even if he says one wrong sentence to someone, that he repents, saying, why did I say that? The sense of repentance increases, and because his inner vision keeps increasing. Dale Carnegie has written very beautiful books, and his book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, is famous all over the world. Who's read this book? Very, very famous book. He wrote in this book that one time he was giving a talk on a radio show on Louisa May Alcott. 3 or 4 days after the radio broadcast, a letter came to his house. The woman that wrote the letter used such harsh words that insulted Dale Carnegie. For example, that whether he had no brains or not, because he said that Louisa May Alcott was from one state, whereas in fact she was from another state. She told him that she couldn't even remember the correct events from her life. She told him that if he did not know, then he should not even go on radio. She wrote a very harsh letter to him. After reading that letter, Dale Carnegie got so angry that he asked this woman who she thought she was. He told her that he's such a famous writer and that the radios do not call him on his shows for no reason. Dale Carnegie knew what he was saying was right because he had done research from the events of Louisa May Alcott's life. As soon as he read that woman's letter, he sat down to write a letter in reply. He wrote, "Who do you think you are that you said, if you had so much brains, then would they not call you on radio? Why do they call me? Because I'm accomplished and I've done the research." He wrote on just like this, signed the letter and put it to the side, having declared that he'll put it in the post in the morning. He went to sleep. When he woke up in the morning, then he read the letter before he'd go and post it. Because 7 or 8 hours had gone, the initial reaction he had reduced. He thought about why he should write a letter back in such bitter language. He tore apart the letter and wrote another letter. The nice thing was that Dale Carnegie was a thinker, and he thought that if his thoughts had changed so much in 7 or 8 hours that they had become soft, then he should perhaps try again. He didn't post the letter, but he kept it to the side. After finishing his day's work, he came back in the evening to read the letter. He thought that the language in the second letter was still bitter. He tore apart the second letter and began writing a third letter in reply to that woman. He put that letter to the side and went to sleep. He woke up in the next morning and he found his third letter also bitter, and therefore began writing a fourth letter. He started his fourth letter with, "My dear lady, thank you for listening to my program so attentively." He started this letter off by thanking her, whereas in the first letter he had asked her what she thought of herself. Then he wrote that he totally understood what she said, but what he said was based on a certain book, and he had carried out the full investigations. That is why he had said it on a radio show. He asked her to carry on listening to his future radio shows, so that if she picked up a second mistake, then she should certainly bring it to his attention. He told her that he was presenting a radio show in her town on a certain date, and that she should certainly come to meet him, and he would like it if she did. Carnegie wrote a letter like that and posted that letter. Carnegie writes in his book that when the woman received that letter, she became so impressed that not only should she listen to each and every word of Dale Carnegie's future radio shows, but she did some of the best work for him. Carnegie said that if such 2 days can make such a big difference in what he wrote in his letter, then why doesn't a person think about this in his relations with other people? The woman was a stranger to him, and if he had sent his first letter, and after a few arguments, then the woman would have went on about her own life. This matter would have been finished. Yet he formed such a nice, friendly relation with such a complete stranger. Then why does a person not have such nice, friendly relations with their own people and their loved ones and their dear ones? Give yourself time. The sense of repentance should increase, so that when one says even one wrong sentence to someone, then he should think about why he said something like this. If he does this, then he's a yogi and a happy man. This is because if a person has no shame in apologizing to another person, then he's the greatest of all people. people find it very hard to say sorry. They find it so difficult, and then we find for them, even if the relationship breaks, but they won't say sorry. By sorry, I don't mean in a formal way, but through the heart. One should feel that he's made a mistake. If one resists the rush of desire and anger, then it's very nice. The better he does, then it's that much that person becomes a yogi and a happy man. He is happy, and that means that the person who does not resist the rush of desire and anger can never be happy. Let's go on to the next verse.